Hey Solos, I have another bonus episode for you, and this one is Epic Universe themed. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Epic Universe Solo Magic, the number one podcast for Epic Universe solo travel to Epic Universe. I don't know, does that make sense? Normally we are Disney Solo Magic, and I had such a great time interviewing 4 different people about their experiences going to Epic Universe Solo, that one of the themes that came up was things about accessibility. And then I saw that there was a creator who created an accessibility guide. And I was like, do you want to talk about it on the podcast? And she said yes. And so that was just a couple days ago. And now here we are. I get to share that with you. Fantastically Fun Size was able to go to Epic Universe twice in the previews, and she created this guide that was about like where to find the escalators, where to find the elevators, how to navigate around the park as easily as possible. And when I invited her to come on the podcast, she said yes. And so the conversation that we had was about the guide itself and a couple different things. And I don't know, it was so great. And also, she'll definitely be back. She'll definitely be back. She had so many awesome things to say. She was just such a ball of light, and it was a great conversation, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Now, you can follow her, Fantastically Fun Size. Also, her name is Tashy, on Instagram and all the different social media that is down below. So please make sure you follow her if you don't already. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads, and those links are below as well. You can listen to this on Apple, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And if we get 100 people on YouTube, which doesn't seem like that much, all things considered, I'm going to be doing a whole video episode. So make sure you go check that out. Speaking of video episodes, I have been taking all of the solo stories that I've been doing, and I've been putting the videos on Patreon so you can watch our conversation. And they're great. It's so fun. It's just so fun to interact. And when I showed up to this call, Tashi was looking so amazing in such just like, oh my gosh, that I was like, you know what? I'm going to go change. So I went and I quickly changed and put on a dress to kind of match her energy. And I also thought that she was at the parks, like at Disney parks, when we first started talking. And I was like, ooh, this seems like it's going to unlock a new level of like solo story interviews. So there you go. So if you want to watch our conversation, make sure you go to Patreon. It's a 7-day free trial, but it's $1 a week for Americans, and it's just over $1 a week for Canadians. Anything else? No, let's go over to the conversation. Hello. I am so excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the Disney Solo Magic podcast. Although right now it's going to be the Epic Universe Solo Magic podcast. Tashi, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. Can you introduce yourself for everybody?
So my name is Tashy Reneé. That's my social media name. So my real name is Natasha. I am born and raised Floridian. I was born and raised in Miami, moved up to Orlando, and that's where I have been since forever. I love to do fashion in the parks, and now kind of branching off a little bit and talking a little bit more about accessibility.
I love
So
that.
part of the reason for this conversation is because I have been fortunate enough to go to Epic Universe twice. My husband is a team member for for Universal, soon to be Epic. He is a paramedic, so he's what's considered global. So he can work pretty much anywhere within the Universal Park. So Universal, Iowa, Volcano Bay, and now coming up Epic Universe. So I was fortunate to have to go with him twice during the previews. And then, of course, it's a brand new park that no one knows about. You know, when you have Disney, you have Universal, you have like the tips and tricks for all these things to learn about all these things. But for someone who is a full-time walker user, I realized, you know what? No one has talked about accessibility. So I want to kind of be the person to kind of bridge that gap to talk about accessibility in the theme parks, specifically Epic Universe, with it being so new and everyone is coming from all over the US and possibly all over the world, coming to this brand new shiny thing. So instead of trying to blindside people, I want to kind of help people out with knowing like what to expect when they're navigating through the portals of Epic Universe.
Thank you so much for that really thorough introduction because I appreciate that you are already helping us stay on point. Because for those of you who are not Tashi and I, like she came on immediately. She looks so amazing. So, again, if you are listening to this on the podcast feed, that's really awesome. But you can watch this on Patreon and you need to because she looks amazing. So amazing. In fact, I went and changed my clothes. So I also had a little bit of a sleeve. And I was like, oh, we're already going to talk more than just this particular episode. So definitely stay tuned. She will be back on the podcast. But this episode, we are focusing on accessibility at Epic Universe because I spoke to 4 people about going solo to Epic Universe, and this came up a little bit in regards to people saying, like, I don't know about the accessibility of it in terms of stairs or the seats or things like that. And I think a lot about going solo when you have accessibility needs that you don't necessarily have like that partner or a group of people to like help you through what that might look like or need for you. And so I had seen on threads that you had been talking about that. And when I saw you
Mm-hmm.
posted it a little bit more, I was like, can you come and talk about this guide that you have created about accessibility at Epic Universe? And so that is what we're talking about today, but I can't wait to talk with you about other things. So you created like a guide, right? You're not just like doing a story that will expire, which is also really great, but you've
Mm-hmm.
created a really useful resource, right?
I tried my best. Yeah. So I had talked about when I went the second time. The first time I went to Epic Universe, we couldn't record or anything. So it was like the beginning part of the previews for team members. The second time that I went, we the ban had just been lifted. I think like maybe a few days prior to me going. So one thing I want to talk about because I am in a couple of Facebook groups and people talk about Epic Universe and what to expect and all the things they're excited for. And that was one thing that I did see come up a lot was um the accessibility. And so I was like, well, you know what? I can maybe touch base on that. And because my husband is my husband, he loves me so much, he did give me a heads up, was like, hey, by the way, just want to let you know there are a lot of stairs and stuff. So I kind of already had a heads up before entering inside the park, some things to expect. But that's because my husband's on the inside. But being finally at Epic, I realized, you know what? Not everyone's going to be as fortunate as I am to have that like insider knowledge. And because no one's talking about it, because when I went, again, it's during previews, not the general public, not the big opening. When I went, realistically speaking, I was probably one of maybe 20 um people with like accessibility with mobility aids at least. Like everybody who was there was able-bodied. So I was like, well, that's a I won't say a disconnect, but there's something missing. So
Yeah,
I did talk
definitely.
about it in my stories. And then one of my friends was like, you know what? You should write a blog. And I was like, I've never written a blog before. So I will try my very best. So I was very, I would say, thorough in my note taking, like when I was at Epic, taking notes of everything, and then just kind of sat at the computer one day and tried to be as thorough as I possibly could to describe it. So for someone who has never been, I can't just be like, oh, elevator's over here. Epic is a brand new park. No one has been here before. So I've had to be a little bit more detailed with everything. So I tried my best to be as detailed and as thorough as possible. So for someone who wouldn't have the chance to go to Epic to maybe next year, about a year or so after it opens, they can kind of already picture in their heads how where things might be, but then also with the videos coming out on, content creators talking about things with Epic. Maybe not so accessibility, but just like showing visuals of the park. I was hoping to take a little bit of that, plus what I wrote together to kind of paint a bigger picture for those with mobility aids or accessibility needs, that they too can feel part of the magic and be able to navigate with little to no issues.
Yeah, and it's like you are becoming the insider for people. And I think that's
Hmm.
so important because if people are designing accessibility issues, but they're able-bodied, there are like specs and measurements, but you have no idea what it's actually like in these spaces. And places like Disney or the other Universal parks that have had decades to practice what that looks like and to modify, you would think at Epcot it would be, excuse me, you'd think at Epic Universe, the newest park, they would have all of that to learn from, and it would be the most
Hmm.
accessible park.
I
Is
would
it?
say, I would say it pretty, aside from Super Nintendo World, because I know a lot of people have talked about it, not only on your podcast, but just in general. There are a lot of stairs. It is a lot of stairs, yes. But I would say, aside from Super Nintendo World, everywhere else in the park is flat leveled. So the park itself is extremely accessible. The ride queues itself are extremely accessible as well. If you know Universal, you can, if you have a mobility aid or have someone with accessibility needs, some of the queue lines are not the greatest in accessibility because these parks were built prior to ADA guidelines. Because Epic is built in 2025, years after ADA requirements were had to be like regulated. I feel like they had so much to learn and they were able to at least incorporate it with the walkthrough of the park. There's no hills or anything, like Disney Magic Kingdom, especially Frontierland. There's like a couple of hills. Animal Kingdom, you have a couple of like hilly areas. The pavement kind of changes between certain locations. Some places are going to be kind of, asphalt, kind of flat and smooth, and some places are more rocky. Epic Universe, for the most part, is just straight. Now, I would say the rumors are true that Super Nintendo World does have a lot of stairs within the land itself and within the rides. But I would say also that Epic was great in allowing other areas to get in. So, for instance, um, I know Genesis had talked about this when she was on your podcast. That to enter Super Nintendo World, you have the portal, and then you have this giant like green warp pipe with an escalator that you get to go through, go up the stairs to the second floor, and then you enter in the world through Peach's castle. Now, for those with mobility aids or accessibility needs, so you can't do stairs, Universal, specifically Epic, was great with having that theming still within the world, but in a different space. So when you try to go up the escalator, if you look to your right before you enter the escalator, there's another warp pipe entrance, and it takes you around the corner to the elevators. And then while you're walking through, there is this giant like warp pipe port, like not port, but a tunnel. And when you're walking through that tunnel, you do hear the deep, deep, deep. So you still get that sound effect that you do if you were on the escalator. And then you enter in like where the elevators are on the bottom floor of Peach's Castle. So that area where the elevators are located is themed to Peach's Castle, which is really pretty. And then you go up the elevator to the second floor, so you're around everybody else when they come right off the escalator. So everything is still themed, and so you get to see everything. Within the world itself, there are a couple of stairs to go up and down certain locations, but there are also elevators around the corner. You just got to find the signs where they're located. So there are ways because if you can't do stairs, there's an elevator option as well, and they're all themed throughout. Now, the beautiful thing is kind of bouncing off to the other worlds real quickly. The other worlds are all one floor, one level. There is no like elevators to enter or exit once entering the portal into Dark Universe, into Ministry of Magic, and into Aleph Burke. They're all one level. Now, when it comes to elevator access, I talked about this in my blog, Super Nintendo World, Yoshi Adventures, and Mario Kart. Yoshi Adventures and Mario Kart both have elevators because you also have stairs to get to the next level. Yoshi Adventures has one elevator, which is great. Mario Kart, I had to go on and off 3 elevators just to get to the ride itself. Yes, just to get to the ride. When you enter the queue line, there's stairs immediately right there. So a team member was there, very welcoming, very greeting to help me out get to the first elevator. Took the elevator to get to Bowser's library. Walked through there, everything is great. And then there's a little like pre-show area before you get onto the ride. Okay. After the pre-show, you walk through, and then there's stairs to go down to where the actual loading platform is. I had to take an elevator to go down to get to the loading platform and then do the ride. The ride is cute. And then from there, I had to get back on another elevator to go back up to then be able to exit off the ride.
And so
Yes,
so the people in the queue would be doing this on stairs.
yes.
Yeah.
So you walk up the stairs to get to, like I said, walk up the stairs in the foyer because you're in Bowser's castle. So up the stairs to get to the foyer, you walk around a little bit and then you enter his library. You're on that floor for a little bit, his library, then you go through like his boiler room, whatever, and then where the pre-show is. After the pre-show, you then go down the stairs, a flight of stairs or two to get to where the
That
loading
just
platform is to actually enter the ride. Yes.
that just seems like
It's a
such
lot.
a crazy weird design and so like uninviting for so many people. Like people
Mm-hmm.
that don't use mobility devices also have issues with stairs. So if you're like, okay, I'll deal with these like few stairs and then all of a sudden it just kind of continues, that just seems overwhelming. Was the ride worth it once you did the three elevators?
Yes and no. Yes
Okay.
and no. So so as someone Super Nintendo was very nostalgic. I grew up playing the Nintendo games on a Nintendo NES, and then going to my uncle's house who had not so much Nintendo but Sega Dreamcast. He had an Atari. He had the Nintendo game system after the NES and also the Nintendo 64. So I've been around these games my entire life. So being able to kind of be transported into the world of Mario Kart, that was cute. I did enjoy that. However, it's really kind of daunting and a little dizzy in a sense because with the like 40 glasses that you're wearing, it kind of makes it seem that you're going fast, but if depending on like if you have like vertigo issues or depth perception issues, you can opt out from wearing like the little glasses thing itself and still enjoy the ride, but then the ride is going slow. So I could tell people if you're familiar with Mario Kart, think about it. So the goggles makes you feel like you're going 90 cc, but the car itself is going 30 cc. If you know, you know. So,
Right, right. Okay, so
mhm.
how about some other rides and things like the seats, or maybe that's not an element that you were looking at for accessibility, but I've heard that sometimes the ride vehicles don't fit bodies that are kind of outside the like quote unquote norm, whatever that looks like.
I would say yes. I'm not I'm not a big girl, so to speak. I am 4'9", so I am short. I would say I'm probably about mid-size. It's really interesting. I have almost like a pear body shape, so I do have hips and a booty. Um, so for me, it's not like super big. I wear like size 8, size 10 pants. So it's not super big. But my husband, who's also not as big either, on certain ride vehicles when we're like together, like specifically Yoshi Adventures, for instance, we were kind of in there like tight. And we're not big people by any means, but
Hmm.
for us to kind of be like super like squirrels into the seat, I would say yes. Universal does have some relooking. They need to do some reimagining when it comes to the ride vehicles in terms of being openly accessible for all body shapes. I know we're talking about Epic right now, but I think that's where Disney like outshines them, except for Tron. I've heard some issues with Tron. Um, but I think that's the other issue as well because I know a little bit more than most people in terms of how things operate a little bit. I do know that Super Nintendo World, aside from a couple things, was essentially a copy paste version from Tokyo, or I think it's in Tokyo, from the Asian parks. So I think when they brought this stuff over, the riot vehicles that were over there in their Asian and Universal, yeah, USJ, Universal Japan, when they brought it over here, I don't think any modifications were made. So a lot of the stuff, the ride vehicles would be, I would say, smaller than that. But also, I know Genesis kind of touched base on this in other areas as well, like Monsters Unchained, for instance. You have the testers. That
Hmm.
is our technology here, and for people. It's kind of disheartening to hear that people like Genesis, who I don't think is a big girl. I know she is very curvy, and people like her are having issues being able to fit in a ride vehicle.
But how about
So,
even just like with your walker, like getting in and out of the vehicles? Like, are the vehicles also designed for kind of ease for that when you have to? I assume that you are giving up your walker for the ride and then coming to pick it up, but
yes.
is that an
Mhm.
easy process for the different ride vehicles?
Oh, you make me think now. So, in certain, so with certain
Like,
vehicles,
because
it's
also
easy.
as someone who is like fairly able-bodied, like there's a couple rides at Disney. Like I was thinking Pirates of the Caribbean, although that's not even the worst one. That I'm like, you want me to get down there, and like you want me to get back up here. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking if the ride vehicles at Epic are like even smaller than kind of on average the Disney ride vehicles, that if you
Hmm.
also are struggling with mobility issues, let alone size, if you're struggling with mobility issues, is that kind of on and off process made even more difficult?
I would say it depends on the ride vehicle itself. I would
Mm,
say um definitely for sure. Well, the first ride that came to mind was Mario Kart. Mario Kart was a ride that it took me a minute. Like getting in was kind of easy. I did kind of step down a little bit. Getting into the ride vehicle that was fine, but getting up, like I had my husband there. He had to like help me because I was trying to like get on my own. But anyone with like mobility issues, or physical needs, sometimes they need like a bar or something to kind of help them.
yeah,
That's non-existent for Mario Kart.
right.
So Mario Kart, you have like a little like lap belt thing, so you can kind of use that to kind of help you get up. But for someone who has issues with maybe getting up and getting down, I would say that is not a ride for you,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because
I
you have
mean,
to get down into it and then try to get yourself back up out of it.
yeah, it just seems like everyone I've spoken to, both for the podcast, but also in people that are sharing their experiences, like on direct message or whatever, really, it just seems like if you are a solo adult, like to avoid Super Mario World, like there's just so many caveats, which is
Hmm.
really frustrating because it appeals to the nostalgic part of our childhood of playing those games.
Yes. I would say as a soloer, although I did have my husband with me and I did go with a couple of friends, we weren't always together the entire time because the second time I went, we did the park and then my husband was like, I want to do this in Dark Universe. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Super Nintendo World. So I did walk around certain areas by myself. So as a solo like park traveler, park goer, I would say with the summer coming up, Super Nintendo World is great with shade. I would say that. So you do have some place you can kind of hide out. If you do have social anxiety, um, I would say that's not the park for you, the land for you, because I know Victoria did touch about this, is that some of the like the things you do with your power up band, you can't just do by yourself. Some things you
Yeah.
would need, it's a group effort. And if you're not someone who likes to talk to other people or has social anxiety, that's not the place to go. But I know we're talking about accessibility. So, but accessibility wise, navigating that area by yourself, pretty good. The signs are everywhere for like elevator access to get up and down the floors. Um, I didn't have any issues aside from getting in and out of the ride vehicle for Mario Kart. Yours Adventures is kind of tight, but in terms of like getting in and getting out, it's like People Mover for those who've gone to Disney. So it's an Omni Mover, but it's just kind of like you kind of just get in, sit down, there's a little bench right there, you get up and you kind of get out. So that one was really easy. Donkey Kong, same thing. Donkey Kong was fairly easy for me to get in and out. Donkey Kong is like a two-level like cart vehicle. So like you have the two in the front that's kind of sitting a little bit lower than the two in the back. It's kind of like that. So if you do have any issues getting in and out of a vehicle, I would definitely say go in the second row of that ride vehicle. That
Useful.
way you can, it's just easier to kind of walk in and out than having to kind of push yourself up to get out.
And can you talk a little bit more about the information people can find in your blog? Because everything that you're sharing right now is just so, so useful. And I can imagine the blog has the same type of tone and like usefulness of like go and like use this row and that row. So can you talk a little bit more about your blog and how you have framed the information there?
So I frame the information as if like for someone like say if you haven't seen if you have seen the videos of like a general walkthrough of how the land is set up, I kind of base it off of that a little bit. So a lot of the my tone in the blog is kind of just like as if I'm talking how we're talking right now, just kind of like explaining where things are, where you have to go. So like Super Nintendo World, for instance, I talk about like, oh, when you enter in, there's there's three ways to enter into the world. You have the escalator, you have an elevator, which is around the corner. I mentioned before you get to the escalator, look to your right, and then you're going to see a portal entry. It's going to take you around the corner to where the elevators are. And then I also mentioned there's a third entrance that no one's talking about. I only knew about this because when I first went to Epic, the portal was still, the escalator was still under construction. So they had the entire portal closed off. So they had us entering and exiting through, I won't say a secret entrance, but I'm assuming it's like a what's the one I'm looking for? Like excess. So like if the park, if the land gets too full, it's like another way for people to kind of exit out instead of taking the elevators or the escalators. This is kind of like in between the portal stuff when you see the big portal that says "Look to go," and then there's a gift shop right over there. You know you're at the gift shop because everything is the windows are stained glass with different Nintendo characters. So you have Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, Zelda, all on the glass windows, and then you also have a Mario fountain. So but in between the portal and the Mario fountain, there is like a little secret walkthrough, and it takes you right into the land. So
I'm kind of imagining, I don't know how much this reference is going to hit people, but like IKEA, when you want to get to the marketplace, so you can get to the marketplace like without going through the showroom because there's like this like
mhm.
entrance kind of right at the front. Sometimes it's like kind of behind an escalator or whatever, but it's there. And like is that you
That's
nodded, so I assume
Okay,
like yeah, okay.
that is exactly it. So
Okay.
I said it's secret but not secret.
Right.
So if you want to be on theme, you definitely have the escalator or the elevator access. But if you just kind of just want a quiet entryway in, quiet entryway out, around that corner from the portal, that's where it is. So going back to my tone, is that my tone just kind of just I try my best to picture it when I was navigating through it and being able to hopefully explain it. So I talk about, oh, you're gonna see this over here when you enter in, look off to your right or look off to your left, and then you should see this. Try to describe like
So
the
useful.
ambiance of what you can see. So that way, if someone is at Epic Universe looking down on their phone, reading my blog and looking up and seeing like the world around them, hoping that they should be able like, okay, Tashy says I should do this. I'm looking, oh, it's right over there. So I try to do it that way. That way it's helping out so many people.
I think that is going to be such a useful resource again, especially for solos that are braving these first few months of Epic Universe.
Mhm.
I think that's just such a wonderful resource. So how can people find it? How can they get it and read it?
So I am also a little bit of shameless plug for a second. I am also a part-time stylist for Once Upon a Wardrobe. Ashley and Lauren, they're the co-owners of Tom Wardrobe. They're the ones who actually saw my stories and said, you should make a blog out of this. So the blog is on their website, onceuponawardrobe.com/blog, and then you'll see me right at the top. I am in the process of working on a link tree. That way I have it, I have the link tree on, and you can just kind of go on the link there. I believe the post on my Instagram, I believe I have it pinned that talks about the blog being
You don't
live.
need to
So if you
stress
want to
about
go on
that
my
because like people can just
oh,
like look in the description of this particular episode and it's going to be linked right there.
I'm so sorry.
And
I'm
so
just trying to
how other
explain it.
people can get it, that's one thing. But you all listening, you can just link right there. It's right there.
Yes.
Yes. So, and then also below are all your social media handles. So, can you just
Hmm.
like tell people how they can get in touch with you? Again, they can
Of,
see it in the description below.
of course. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads as Fantastically Fun Size. And yeah,
All
I
right.
thought
Well,
about maybe
you will be back on soon.
I'm
I
so
can't
excited.
wait. Thank you for doing
Yeah.
this quick bonus accessibility blog promotion
Mhm.
episode. I can't wait to talk with you again about Disney, about Epic, about accessibility. This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is such an honor and a pleasure to be here on your podcast. I truly appreciate it, and I cannot wait to talk with you again soon.
I know, soon. All right. So until then, goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Samantha.
Hey Solos, it's Samantha. I hope you enjoyed this episode as well as all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. If you loved this solo story as much as I did, you probably will love watching it even more. The Disney Solo Magic Patreon has been reorganized to make it even easier for you to access this type of content. The Patreon has unedited videos of all the solo stories, as well as reflections on each episode, including the solo stories, an opportunity for you to vote on future episodes, and a monthly release schedule, which is always subject to change, but it's always kind of interesting to see what's planned. What's great about the solo story videos, and the reason why I really wanted to do the Patreon, is because we have so much fun having these conversations. And when you're listening to them, you don't totally get all of the looks, the gestures, the outfits, the laughing, the bloopers, the nose blowing, and all of that stuff that just make it like two friends having a great conversation. And we want you to be part of those conversations. So join Patreon now. It is $5 Canadian, which is about $4 American, $1 a week, or just over $1 a week, and that way you get access to these videos and can join the conversation and have even more fun. Plus, there is a free trial, and for those of you who signed up for the free trial in the different organization that I had for Patreon, guess what? You get to sign up for another free trial and get another week. I hope this organization of Patreon works really well for you to be able to see how fun it is to have these solo stories, and I can't wait to have more. I am booking solo stories up until September and October, so you don't want to miss access to how fun it is to have these conversations. And if there is enough of us, maybe we can have a big solo story meetup one day this summer. So please join me on Patreon, although if you're unable to join the Patreon right now, you can also support the podcast by subscribing, rating, reviewing, commenting, and sharing the Disney Solo Magic podcast to all of your friends and family across all of the platforms that we are connected with. The links to all of this is below, and I can't wait for another wonderful season of content. Bye!